Thinking about holding your girlfriend's hand in China? Thinking about kissing your girlfriend in China? Think again. Wait, that didn't sound right. That's better. Right, now this is kind of weird. I don't know why I haven't spoken about this before, because this is something that's affected me. And it will definitely affect you if you are going to be dating a Chinese woman or a Chinese girl, or vice versa, if you're going to be dating a Chinese man. Basically, public affection, displays of public affection are not really a thing here. So I'd like to share some of my stories and also give you an idea as to why this is the case. Now, hang on a second, before I continue, what's with all this dust? Hang on. That's better. And what the heck's with these black bars anyway? See if I can do something about that. There we go, better. Now, before I jump in and tell you some of my stories, I would like to first tell you that age groups are very important here, right? You've got the younger generation, people that are sort of my age and younger, so people that are in their sort of 20s to 30s, that's one age group, and then you have people that are in their 40s to 60s. Now the 40s to 60s crowd is an incredibly traditional sort of crowd here, and they're usually part of the lost generation, or at least close to that, and traditionally they don't believe in, you know, sort of public displays of affection. You will not see, I've never seen my mother and father-in-law exchange a kiss on the cheek or a hug or anything like that. They're just kind of very distant from each other, and that's true for everyone of that generation. The younger generation, of course, yeah, a little bit more open to the West, and you know, China's changed a lot. They've seen a lot of Hollywood movies and watched Friends and what have you. And usually they're more open to this sort of thing, but still they're afraid of their parents, and they're afraid of the whole traditional family unit. And so, of course, this dictates the way they behave. There are, in fact, some positives and bonuses to dating someone of the older generation, which I'll get to in a short while, but as far as the younger generation is concerned, that's where my experience comes in. So let me share a story or two with you. So when I got to China, of course, I was a young, naive, 25-year-old. You know, I'd had relationships, of course, in South Africa, and I was used to the whole Western style of dating. You know, if you're dating someone, you walk hand in hand on the streets, you know, you maybe give them a kiss in public, make out sometimes, depends on the situation, of course, but you know, there's a lot of affection being shown. So the first girlfriend I got in China, I was horrified that she didn't want to hold my hand. She would in fact push me away from her. And you know, I got very offended. I couldn't kiss her in public. And in fact, she wanted me to walk a few feet away from her so people didn't know we were dating. This, of course, led to the end of that relationship, because there's no way I'm going to put up with being in a relationship with someone who's ashamed to be with me. But there, of course, is a lot behind that, and I've grown to understand why she behaved that way. You could think it's due to xenophobia, racism, and that kind of thing, and yes, there is a bit of that thrown in there, because, you know, China's a homogenous country, and for them, it seems almost crazy, or it's just unthinkable for you to marry outside of your culture and outside of your race. And that's, you know, an unfortunate sort of byproduct of being closed off for so long. Thing is, it's not really that. It's basically down to the whole stability thing. And this is something I've got to realize through, you know, various relationships, and of course recently through my wife. Now, Chinese families are incredibly traditional. It's very simple. The parents want their child, daughter or son, to marry someone who is stable, especially if it's a daughter. Let's go from that angle first. If they have a daughter, they want their daughter to marry someone stable, preferably rich, but the most important thing is that they have a house and they have a good job. That's like the prize. You've won the prize there, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get their daughter in with somebody who has a stable house, a stable job, and then they must have a kid straight away, and then the family, the parents can then move in with them, you see, and they have a retirement home. They look after the child, they have a place to stay now, they don't have to worry about paying bills anymore. The young couple will pay for the house and pay for all the food and everything, and they just have to cook and clean and look after the child. So this whole traditional drive to have a stable situation is why they are so against their daughters marrying foreigners, because number one, they're afraid that the foreigner is going to take their daughter away to another country, and number two, they don't have any control over that foreigner. If that foreigner tomorrow wants to just leave, say for instance, peace out and say, I'm not having any part of this anymore, they can. So if something goes wrong with the relationship, the foreigner could just go home. So that stability is instantly shattered. So you've got a big stigma around sort of mixed couples here. And over the years here, it's gotten better, but I tell you what, I've had rude remarks, walking down the street with my girlfriend here in China. I'll hear people say disgusting things. I've had sneers, I've had dirty looks. I've had once a guy walk up to me in the mall while I was walking with my girlfriend and shoulder me, really hard, like very aggressively. You get this nonsense, and if you walk past a bunch of drunk guys sitting outside, if you're with your Chinese girlfriend, you're liable to get people causing shit, talking nonsense, and there've been people that have been attacked, all right, it has happened, but that's par for the course, and you go anywhere if you're in a mixed relationship, if you go to any sort of get into any sort of situation where you've got nationalists and so on around, you're probably going to get trouble, so that's just the way it is. So the reason why my original girlfriend wanted to stay so far away from me was to not let people know that she was dating a foreigner, because then she could avoid that stigma. If anyone from her work or her family saw her, she wouldn't have to worry. Now this is of course incredibly insulting because it means that they're just not happy with you, or they're not, what's the word? They're not confident enough in your relationship to want to show publicly that they're with you. And it could be a kind of a deal breaker for a lot of people, myself included. But anyway, when it comes to my wife, we were dating, and we'd been dating for a while, and she hadn't told her parents. I kept asking to meet her parents. She was like always making excuses. She hadn't told her parents, she hadn't told her work colleagues about us, because for the same reason, she was worried. And it was only once I had proposed and we were engaged that she finally went and told her parents and work colleagues, etc. A little bit insulting, I know, but you have to understand the culture and understand why she was like that. So I mean, I don't hold it against her, and in fact we talked a little bit about it in the video where I talk about how we met. I'll link it right here if you guys would like to go take a look. It's maybe worth a watch. I said I'd tell you why it's advantageous to be dating somebody from the older age group, so here it comes. This whole stigma of marrying or dating a foreigner, which is looked down upon by traditional Chinese society and by the Chinese society in general, and you can try and argue against that, but I know from my experience walking around here in China, it's still the case. People may be a little bit more accepting, the younger crowd, but especially the older generation, they don't like it, and that's just the way they are. Anyway, the thing is, if you're going to date an older woman here in China, that stigma pretty much, you don't need to worry about it. At least she's not going to be concerned about it. And that's because the simple fact that when a woman reaches the age of about 30, even 28, 29 here in China, they start to be called leftover women. So if they haven't gotten married by that age, is what I'm trying to say. It's just the way it goes here. If they're not married, it's going to get difficult and more difficult for them to get married, because in this whole traditional society, childbearing is of course incredibly important. So if you've got a son and he wants to marry someone who's 30, and the chances are that she's not going to give healthy children straight away, the grandparents, the whole family is going to try and talk him out of it, maybe even force him out of it and make him marry someone younger. So it's a bit annoying, but that's the way it goes here. So as a woman, when you reach the age of around 30 in China, you're already kind of seen as unmarriageable material. It's even worse if you get older, and the worst case is if you've been married, had children, and then gotten divorced, because then there's just no chance you're ever going to get married to a local Chinese person here in China at all. Unless, of course, you're rich and powerful or come from a very powerful family, that's a different story. But just from what I've experienced and what I know from living in China so long, this is definitely the case. And these are the women that go to these online dating websites, the ones that go to look for foreign husbands from overseas. And for good reason. Foreigners don't have the same stigma. A lot of foreigners, they don't mind if, somebody they're looking for, if they fallen in love with someone and they already have a child or 2 children, they don't really mind. They can accept that. They can accept the children into their lives, etc., etc. However, in China, that's not the case. If somebody is looking at getting married to someone, if they already have children, forget about it. It's just not going to happen. They won't accept that. And so the reason why I'm saying this is they've already kind of given up on the whole traditional Chinese family thing, the whole traditional Chinese marriage thing. So they'd be more than happy to be with a foreigner, and that stigma is not going to bother them anymore, because what are you worried about? What's this stigma when everybody's already sort of looking down on you anyway? So they've given up all their cards, and now they're with a foreigner and they're happy just to be married. And that's why dating the older generation is going to be a positive. Of course, there are a lot of negatives to dating that older generation, because they've got a very, very strange mindset, very different to any kind of foreign mindset. And of course, you're going to find out yourself. I have friends who are married to Chinese ladies of that generation, and boy, oh boy, is it trouble. Do they have a lot of trouble. Not all of them, of course, but there are just certain levels of understanding which just simply cannot be reached, it seems, when you're dealing with people from that generation. Anyway, that's entirely up to you, and I just wanted to let you know. So, back to the main point of this video. Public affection is not a big thing in China. Expect, if you're here in China, if you're dating a local person, expect to be pushed away if you try to kiss your girlfriend in public, especially if she's a little bit more of a traditional girl. If they do go along with you, they're usually a little unwilling. It can be quite uncomfortable. And of course, it's not very well accepted in public. If you do try to make out with your girlfriend in public, you'll get stares, dirty looks, you'll feel uncomfortable, she'll feel uncomfortable, everybody will feel uncomfortable. It's literally just not something that's done here. So I hope that's answered your questions, guys. Thank you for sitting through this one. I am a little bit sick. I've just come off the tail end of some kind of awful flu, hence the not walking around. So apologies for that. I'm really happy that you guys sat through this one, though. Thank you very much. I hope this answered some of your questions, and please, if you have more questions, just ask them down below. Of course, in all of my videos, I do have to speak in rather sweeping generalizations, because I'm talking about an entire country here, and I'm talking about 2 different cultures. So this doesn't apply to everyone, and that should be fairly obvious. So before you go out typing that, I know this one couple that, kissed on the Great Wall and blah, blah, it doesn't matter. So you will get exceptions. And yes, in my whole time here in China, I've seen 5, literally 5, maybe 4 in, let me think. There was one in Beijing. I saw a couple making out in a car. One time in Shanghai on Nanjing Road, and they could have been tourists. Shenzhen, I've seen some high schoolers holding hands. That's as far as I've ever seen it in Shenzhen. I've never seen a young couple kissing in public. And that's, honestly, that's it. That's it. It's not a big thing here. So anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Can't wait to see you in the next one. And you know the drill. Wait, hang on. Before you leave, I got to tell you, my wife's starting her own little channel. I've got a, well, of course I'm helping her with it in the beginning, but I'm busy teaching her the ropes, and soon she'll be doing it all by herself. But short little clips of her talking about something interesting or her doing something. Link is going to be in the description below. I'd appreciate if you go show her some support. It'd be awesome of you. Well, because, you know, you guys are awesome and I feel awful. So hopefully by the next time I see you, I'm going to be right as rain. And of course, I can't stop before I tell you guys to, of course, stay awesome.